Welcome to Village in Motion. It is Thursday, November 22nd. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope everybody's enjoying it. I am Clint Lambert. I am the host today of Village in Motion, and I have three council members and former council members with me here in the studio, and we're going to talk about some things about the resident council and things over the years. We're going to look back. This is the 20th anniversary this month, and hopefully you enjoyed the 17th. And all the ceremonies that took place on that day. Number one, we have with me, sitting next to me, Mary Sue Garner, who's a past president. You were the president of 2016-17, right?
That's correct.
All right.
Yeah.
And next to her is Ken Cockey, and Ken is the liaison to the Finance Committee and has been associated with the Finance Committee now for
4 years.
4 years. All
right. At the end of my term.
Okay, but hopefully you're going to wind up as staying on the Finance Committee as a member, not as a
yes,
councilman.
I anticipate staying on as a member.
Good, great. And on the end over here we have Gray Parks, and everybody knows Gray Parks, our troubadour, and also a major part of the council. And Gray has been with the council now for 4 years,
right,
and has served as liaison to General Services, right, Gray?
Right.
And we're glad to have you with us. We're glad to have all of you with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
And Gray was vice president for 1 year.
That's right. I forgot about that, Gray. You were vice
I'd almost forgotten about it.
You almost forgot. Mary Sue didn't forget about it because she relied on you, and I know that.
That's right.
But,
And Clint was president for how long?
3 years.
3 years?
Yeah.
Prior to Mary Sue?
Prior to Mary Sue, 13,
Okay.
14, and 15.
Yeah.
And Mary Sue was my vice president and thoroughly enjoyed the experience. And I didn't run her away. She wanted to be president. I mean,
No,
so.
she didn't want to. It just was one of those things.
Yes.
Well, she did a very good job.
She really has. And we greatly appreciate all three of you serving.
And we appreciate your service, too.
Well,
Yes.
thank you very much. Appreciate that. Mary Sue, we'll start with you since you were president. You've been here, what, 5 years?
7 years.
7 years, all right. And you got into the council, involvement with the council as a council member, as a committee member, your very first year, right?
My very first year. And in fact, I started off as chair of the Dining Services Committee.
Okay.
My first year.
Yeah.
I was dragged into it.
Right.
And so I learned on the job and then decided that I needed to do the job one more year. So I did that committee for 2 years and then moved up to the council and was on the council for the 4 years.
Right. And you still are associated with the council. You still do activities and help the council out.
I'm available.
Right. With taking photos and
Yes.
and getting groups together. And right now I understand you're collecting names for people to be on committees.
Yes. Yes, I'll use that as an intro into, we're looking for people to sign up for committees.
Okay.
It's not too late. November, I wrote it down, November 28th is when they are due.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a great job. You learn a lot about that particular area. We have 8 different committees.
Right.
And it's time to volunteer if you haven't done it before. And if you've been on a committee, sign up again or sign up for a different committee.
Right. So, because otherwise the council doesn't function.
That's correct. That's where the real work is done.
Right.
We just kind of administrate and rule, and they do all the work.
Yeah. Because the information, the ideas come out of the committees.
Yes.
In regards to it, and the transmission of information from administration to the council, to the liaisons, to the committees, and then
Right.
back up as well in regards to that. Very good. And Ken, you with being a liaison to Finance Committee, you came in with a history of finance, right?
Well, I'd been on Wall Street, but when Barbara was being interviewed as part of our starting at Green Spring, I met Bob Zikowitz in the lobby of Village Square, and I told him my background, and he suggested that when I come here, I start some kind of an investment group.
Yeah. Okay.
So that I did, and somehow word got around that maybe I knew something about finance, or somebody determined that maybe they thought I knew something.
Yes.
And so my name came up, and I believe it was you that suggested you could use my services.
Yes.
since Al Nielsen of blessed memory was
Yes.
finishing his 4-year term as a liaison to
Right.
finance.
Yeah, and we're very glad that you did that. And you've been with us now for how many years?
We've been at Green Spring for 5 years now,
Okay.
5 years in July. Hmm?
All right, very good. And Gray, you've been with us the longest of this group,
9 years.
9 years. And
About a year less than you, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
a year and a half less than I. But you've done a lot of things in those 9 years, and a lot of things with the council. As Mary Sue says, from serving as vice president to liaison to committee member, and all the other work that you've done with it.
Well, I started out on the sales committee, sales and
Okay.
info. And then I went to the resident life, and then the general services 1, which was inside.
Right.
And in general services 2, which was outside. And then we combined the general services into 1. And then I became a liaison to that.
Yeah. When we had the committee split, it was confusing in regards to who did what, who was
Yeah.
responsible for what.
There was some fuzzy.
Right. And so we were very glad to combine it back into a single thing.
And I think that works very well because we have subcommittees that handle basically what we did on the 1 and 2, but they're in the same committee, so we get to talk back and forth on each area. So
Right.
yeah, I think that combining was a good thing.
Okay. And Mary Sue, we did the same thing with dining services, where we
did.
combined dining services 1, dining services 2, back into just dining
One committee.
services.
Yeah. And that's worked out well. It's just dining services 2 was spending its time on the cafe and the bistro,
Right.
the place and the stores and the places that made money, and that was it. And it wasn't really as involved as the dining services 1. So it just made sense to put them together, add another subcommittee,
Right.
and that's worked out really well.
Okay. Well, you said places that made money. I wasn't so sure they were making money when we.
Well, let's say places that took in money,
There we
where
go.
you paid for the services.
But however,
Yeah.
I understand now that dining services actually in those different facilities actually are making money, or they're breaking even now.
I don't know.
In regards
Yeah.
to that, so
I hope so.
there's been some positive change over the years in regards to that.
Yes.
Ken, speaking of positive change over the years, what is a positive change that you've noticed in your 5 years with us?
That's interesting. 5 years. What is a positive change? Well, for one thing, it's taken me 5 years to learn what the system is all about and how it works, and I think I'm still learning. In fact, Barbara and I have even looked at other Erickson communities, explored other Erickson communities with a view to trying to understand our community better. But I think maybe the flow of information has improved over the years, at least the availability of the information. That's not to say everybody's getting it.
Right.
But if you go to the coffees, I think it's amazing the amount of information that's available and the access we have to the management, whether you're on the council or committee or not.
Right.
So yeah, that would be one improvement I see.
Okay. And that's a major improvement. And there's been a lot of work with the councils over the years to improve communication, both within the council and the committees, and especially between residents and administration in regards to it. Yeah.
Could I add into
Oh,
that?
please.
I think one of the things that's happened is more involvement by residents and council in decision making. Doesn't
okay.
always show up.
Right.
But I think you really worked hard
Oh, thank you.
way back when to get the council more involved, starting with the design committees
Right.
for Garden Ridge and Town Center, and getting residents on the committee to help make those designs. And then as each new director came along, they sort of came in saying, oh yeah, you're involved.
Right.
And we continue to be involved.
Right.
And continue to be consulted on the council, I think.
Yeah.
And if you look at the list of things that have been accomplished, it's a long list, some
Yeah,
big things.
it really is.
We were just talking about the new windows.
Yes.
I mean, that came from the residents
It certainly
many
did.
years ago, and it took a long time, but we finally got
Right.
our new windows, and they're almost all in.
Yes.
I think
Thank
back
goodness.
to about the last building.
Yeah. Almost
Yeah.
all of them. I mean,
Yeah.
my apartment's still missing one window that they,
Well,
didn't measure the correct size, but we shall get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
it's a positive movement in regards
that's
to
right.
that,
That's right.
and a positive change.
Now, the goal is to have them completed by the end of December.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Speaking of that, Gray, you're always in on when things are to be completed by General Services, or at least you get that information.
I try to.
You get that information before the rest of us typically, because your relationship and you're being a liaison to General Services. Are there other things that are coming up that impact us that are on deadline?
Well, the elevator.
Ah,
You know, the
yes.
elevator is a good example of something that it has taken time because, about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we talked about the elevator, and we had a design for the elevator that would have put it next to the current elevator, which would have required moving the cubbies and redesigning all of Village Square. And it was determined that maybe we could find a better place. And they did find a better place over in the porch, because now the elevators will be separated. Well, all of that was, one was designed, and we were about ready to put it in when we changed the mind, and so on and so forth. So, but now the elevator should be completed by the end of this month. Now, let's give or take a week or two. But the goal is to have it done by the end of the month. And so it's just about here.
Yeah, and Mary Sue, you had a major participant in that design and getting the elevator where it is.
Yes, part of it, yeah. And when Ben was here, he made a big effort to consult all the residential groups that were in Village Square to get their points of view, and the design team spent a lot of time working on that. But it's going to be great when it's finished.
It would be really, really nice.
Yeah.
And when you mention Ben, I'm not sure everybody knows who Ben is. Ben Corthwaite, and Ben was our executive director for 15-16, Board of 16. Before he left, in regards to it, and really did a lot of things for improving communication with residents during his tenure here. So. And the thing with the design committee is, I happened to be president during the time when we started with the design committees, and Robin Gliboff, who was the executive director at that time, was talking about the fact of having residents involved. And I said, I want, and
you got.
And I got, which I was very pleased with in regards to that, of being able to appoint 5 people to Garden Ridge and 5 people to Town Center in regards to the design. And then we have met over the years since then, more frequently in the beginning than we do now, but we have met and discussed and looked at different designs. And unfortunately, each time we've had a new exec,
things change.
Things change, and so there's been some of our experiences with that. The only exec that I left out within that time frame since 2013 is Jean Landerville, who was with us only for about 16 months, somewhere in that area with us, and she's now the executive director in Tallgrass, Kansas. Yeah. I have to stop and think where Tallgrass is. But the council has continued since 1998-99 and continues to work, continues to function. But it's important to have the council members, right?
Yes, it is.
And what happens in a council meeting with just the liaisons? What takes place? Ken, you're looking very
well,
astute.
The council meeting with the liaisons is the work session, which takes place relatively early in the month. I guess it's the third Friday?
Second Monday.
Or second Monday. That's a Monday. The 3 C's is the third Friday.
There you go.
It's the second Monday. And all of the council members, the eight of the council members are liaisons of committees. Right. So they all give reports on their committees. Right. It's easier when your committee's already had a meeting that month. Several of us, have meetings after the council meeting, and of course the 3 executives, the vice president, and secretary, also give reports at that meeting. Right. And of course that's followed, on the Friday of the 3rd week by the 3 C's, where the council members and the chairs, all the chairs get together, and the chairs give reports on their committees.
Right. And then all of that's repeated again for the
Fourth.
fourth
Fourth
Monday.
for the general meeting for all residents to attend, and that information is disseminated.
And during that meeting, we sort of summarized, perhaps not the same information that we did on Monday,
Right.
but we summarized so that we can get the meeting within an hour, hour and a half.
Right.
And
We
that
yet
meeting
provide
includes,
information.
and that meeting includes the executive director typically, and allows questions and answers.
And our director of the board,
Right.
Roy.
Our resident director,
Yeah. It's always wanted to call him as resident and residence, I mean director and residence in regards to it. But,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
many times in the work session, that's where the door is closed and we actually do work, talk about some sensitive topics if we have to, stays within the room for if we have to, and we try to deal with those kinds of things. But sometimes it's something that's happening with the administration that they're telling us. They don't want us to release it yet, but they want to let us know.
Right.
And that's been a good thing that they've told us ahead of time when something is going to happen.
And
We don't
al-
always have that, but sometimes.
Right. And also the fact of giving us information ahead of time
Yes.
and asking for our input.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that people really understand that the council often gives input regarding various projects, various decisions that affect us in regards to it, and have changed the minds of the execs over the years in regards to that. Great.
Yes, along that line, we often hear comments from residents who are not on the committee or who are not on the council. Well, we didn't have any resident input. And the point you've made is that we do represent the residents and that we do have resident input, although they're not necessarily part of that input. They might like to be.
Right.
And if they really would like to be, then the thing to do is to get on the committee
Right.
or run for the council.
Yes.
But
Yes.
then they can be part of the being part of the information, and so
Right.
the chain there.
And that's very, very important. And for people to really realize that, I mean, again, the council cannot function
That's right.
without the residents, and residents have to volunteer. Nobody's appointed. I mean, nobody's. It's not saying you're going to do this. I mean, in regards to it. So, but need to really have those residents say, "I want to. I would like to share. I would like to participate," and not to just volunteer because they have a particular item
Right.
that they want to champion. I think many times people go amok in thinking they can do that in regards to things.
No, that's one of the objectives of the council is when you're running for it, you have to agree that I'm available for any liaison.
Right.
I'm not running the council just for one specific area.
Right.
And that's it. And it was so disappointing this year because we didn't have enough people to volunteer to be on the council to fill the council. We're 2 council members short. And so that's why I'm making the pitch that if you really want to be part of Greenspring and don't want to say, well, they didn't ask me,
Right.
if you want some resident input, then you run for the council. And we ask a lot of people. It wasn't a matter of asking. The people have the opportunity because it's a self-nomination process.
Right.
And therefore, if you think that you have something to offer Greenspring, you offer yourself
Right.
to be a part of the council.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen enough this year.
I want to put in when Gray decided to run for the council. The nomination committee did not ask him. He came forward himself and said, "It's my time to give back."
Ah.
And I will always remember that. It's my time to give back. And so he gave back for 4 years.
Yes.
And I just wish we had more people who had that attitude.
Right.
And I was blonde before we started.
Yeah, that happened.
That happens.
But I know there are a lot of people out there who are concerned about what's happening on campus
Right.
and everything. And they just have some very valid reasons why they can't join, but many people could find the time to do it.
Exactly.
It doesn't take up that much time.
Right. And often people think, well, I've never run for an office. I've never been on a committee outside my home, those kinds of things. This is a great time to say, hey, I'm actually participating, making some decisions,
Right.
being involved in what's going on.
This is a great time to do whatever you couldn't do
Right.
while you were home, you know, or didn't do.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. In regards to that, with that, what kind of things are you seeing that need to be done now that the council needs to get involved in? Are there things that the council's not involved in that they should be involved in?
Well, I would say that we're involved in much more, compared to what the council and the committees were involved in when I first served on the sales committee. It was just light years ahead because there's so much more work by the council or the committees. And I use the General Services Committee as a good example. The General Services Committee, we have each subcommittee meet with the directors of the staff. So the maintenance, engineering, and grounds meet with Scott, and
Scott Sullivan, who's our engineer here.
that's right. And transportation meets with Derek. So we have a good opportunity there, and we didn't have that. We didn't do that 5 years ago. We had a committee, and we met, and things. You know, we discussed the things, and we did a few good studies. I remember a couple of good studies we did, but I think the committees now are much more involved by being directly associated with the directorships. Right. So that's happening.
Yeah. And when you mentioned transportation, Derek, I can't remember Derek's last name now.
Mackert.
Mackert, that's what it is, Mackert. Who's been with us for 3 or 4 years, and he very willingly shares information about transportation, what plans are, and asks for input about what can we do to improve the transportation.
And GPS is a good example.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes,
And the 5 new buses this year.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that came from council as both GPS and 5 new buses came from the committees and the council because we started recommending the GPS about 5 years ago.
About 5 years
Probably,
ago.
yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
And we finally have it, but it's taken a long time.
And we asked for, I think, 2 buses and a big transport bus, and we
Right.
got, would you say 5?
5, yeah.
We got
Yeah,
5
5
new buses.
right.
So we got more than what we asked for. Could be that the older buses were dying on us. But yeah, I think the managers and the directors of the departments are more willing than ever to listen and get resident involvement. They do pay attention to what we say.
Okay.
Not always. There are
Right.
some areas where they've just ignored us, but most of the time, you know, working with the committees, they really do take time to listen to us and come to the meetings and be involved with us.
But it's imperative that residents speak up.
Absolutely.
It's imperative that residents get involved and say, hey,
And not just complain to another resident.
Right.
I mean, I've had a lot of people who complain, but they're not willing to give their time in the right area, not willing to call the right person or talk to the right person. So you need to get involved, residents.
And not just at the dinner table.
Not just at the dinner table. And yes, those dining cards are read by
Exactly.
a lot of people. And yes, those comment cards to general services are read.
Yes.
And yes, the comment cards to medical center are read. All those are a result of residents wanting those, adding those comment cards in.
Yeah. And wanting to provide that feedback to
Yes.
that department, to that
Yes.
manager
Yes.
in regards to it. Yes, Ken.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things, by way of information, one of the things that's changed in the last 4 years is the introduction of the forums. Your
yes.
dining forums and your finance forums, where they've opened up these meetings to, in the case of finance, to residents and next of kin or whoever.
Right.
And dining, of course, they have all kinds of meetings now that they didn't, major meetings and then local meetings in the dining rooms. That is all new in the last few years.
Yes.
And the Ancillary Health Committee has set up forums
Right.
for that particular area. And now I think the department's pretty well taken it over, and they're supporting. But that's where that came from. We needed a forum to find out about
Right.
home health care and that whole area.
Yeah. Well, I was speaking of the forum, the finance forum that was presented. I mean, I was very pleased that was presented. And my wife and I went and changed from a will to a trust because of that. In regards to it, the amount of information that is shared, and if all you have to do is volunteer or attend what's there, and it all starts with the council in regards to it.
And I want to throw in the Staff Appreciation Fund,
Yes.
which is Resident Life. They're the ones who get that information with staff help, of course. But you know, we get out there, residents get out there and try to get everybody to give their money, and so then we get to give a nice gift to the staff.
That's right. And the staff really relies on that.
Yes, they do.
They expect that, and they appreciate what they get in regards to it. So many of the staff go unrecognized, but you never see them. They're behind the scenes.
That's right.
In regards to things. Well, we have 1,100 staff. I think
I
somewhere
think it's
in that area.
1,100, yeah, about
That area.
1,100.
But you know, think about how few you see in a day
Right.
in regards to it, but how many it takes to keep
keep
Green
us
Spring going and providing the services that we enjoy in regards to it. I am so appreciative that the three of you decided to come on today and was willing to come on. And Ken, this time I didn't have to twist your arm to get you to do it. But yeah, it is so nice to share and to reminisce and to look back, and that's what we do with Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
Get with family and talk. And I thought it was very interesting that the lead-in show is we gather together. I mean, the lead-in music today, and we gathered together here at Green Spring, and we can enjoy it and have fun and really appreciate what we got here in regard. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I would have one closing thought, because I'd say the greatest disappointment I've had is the signage committee. We had an ad hoc committee that went through all of Green Spring, looked at the signage that was excuse me, signage that was available, and made recommendations to the department that about the signs. There were several recommendations, but one was the signs out front of each clubhouse, and we have those now.
Right.
And they're beautiful signs, and everybody thought that was great. Another one was the signs for each building that have the building name. We had the building name on it at the beginning, but they were replaced by just the numbers on the awnings, and but no longer do we have the names of the building, Park View or Connor Terrace or whatever, over the awnings or by the awnings, by the entrances. And we also recommended different parking signs, and because the current ones were smaller, it's very difficult to read. So I guess my big disappointment has been the lack of effort to improve the signage.
Okay. Well, something to work on, people to think about, and for residents to get involved in and say, hey, this is what we want. Okay. Very good. Again, thank you for being with us, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Clint.